I think performance capture requires a lot of the old skills of acting in theatre and film techniques, and then requires some new skills. I think it takes the best of both worlds, pushes them together, adding in a lot of imagination, and then you have to find the way through so that you can be a little bit more external with your movements if necessary for animation terms, but then have the internal aspects, the intimate detail that film allows you to. Think of it as a wide, a master wide, and a close-up simultaneously. And that's performance capture. I've definitely had a digital double made before in the past in a different way. I played a few characters that have looked exactly like me. For me personally, it's exciting both ways. I like the idea of literally going to somebody's skin and really creating a character outside in and messing around with different looks and physicalities, because it allows me to play a character that I would never be given in TV and film that's appropriate to my ethnic background. But also it's very interesting to see yourself digitized as a digital double and to see yourself in that role as well. It's a very interesting experience. I don't have a preference because I'm a character actor. I like to do both. I think you have to be very careful to understand your habits when you go about creating, because it's very easy to just go, I'll just do me. But I always try and use as much ideas as possible and throw it against the wall, see what sticks, what works, what doesn't work. And then gradually, bit by bit, the things that don't really work or aren't that interesting sort of fall away. And hopefully you're left with some very interesting aspects to then build a character with. It's been a really interesting experience. Like I said, I've used HMCs for a long time, but you never see such detail immediately. It's always much later in post. So it's super exciting to see how your face actually moves. I think it's very important that the tech companies that go to build these wonderful pieces of software and hardware to help enhance performance really carry on doing that to enhance performance that's real. Because I think with the advent of AI usage, which has been used to blend for many years motion. But the idea of taking people's faces, taking people's voices, and then making computer simulation out of them skips over the most important part of performance, which is the happy accidents, which is the things that you can't see until you're in the present moment. The thing the actor brings that there is no way of predicting, and something I don't believe at the moment that you can create through AI. I think it's really important that the best way of doing that is to be able to help the actors deliver their performance. So any hardware or software that can do that without taking away from the actor in the way that AI would is super important. And I think it's really interesting to see companies like DI4D who are simply trying to enhance a performance as opposed to trying to replicate it. Now is a great time for actors to find video game opportunities. I also think that the one thing that I've noticed which is fantastic is that by and large it's a lot more inclusive, a lot more diverse in terms of the casting, in terms of the characters that are being presented. And also I think people are more aware about casting an actor what is appropriate to their ethnic background, as opposed to just one person plays a whole bunch of stuff. So for me personally, I think it's super exciting. I think it's more accessible for actors. There are a few people out there, myself included, that try to mentor actors through the process, or performers, any professional performers like wrestlers or stunt performers, gymnasts, dancers. So I have training workshops that I do simply to help people understand the technicalities to then start their career. So I definitely think a lot more people have come into the industry, which is fantastic. I think institutions like BAFTA giving recognition to actors is an amazing thing. By and large, story wasn't the big thing for games. It was more like the raison d'etre, but not actually the focus of a game. The appetite for narrative and gameplay, I feel is pretty much like this. I think people want both. Because if a gameplay is hard because it's challenging in a good way, the danger is you might quit. But if you connect it to the characters, you're going to keep fighting. The levels of acting in games are easily equaling and occasionally sometimes surpassing TV and film. I think you're making a deeper connection than a passive medium, which is still great, which is TV and film, where you're watching the vision of the director. In a game, you are actively changing the story, and you're still a part of that story. The connection is greater. I think, therefore, you need great actors from TV, film, games, everything, to come into games and continue to do so, to elevate the performances to that level. So I think it's super important, and I think it is now the palette that narrative equals gameplay. And if one fails, the game doesn't do great. But if both work, the game's amazing in a total experience for the player. Yeah.